Ambassador Zethkar's four eyes widened in what could only be described as existential horror as he reviewed the human military training footage for the third time. The crystalline being's translator struggled to find appropriate words in galactic standard for what he was witnessing. "This cannot be accurate," he chittered to his aide, Lieutenant Vexhai. "Surely there has been an error in translation or context." The aide, a serpentine creature from the Helix Nebula, coiled nervously around her data pad. "I have verified the authenticity 17 times, Ambassador. The footage is genuine. These are standard human military exercises." On the holographic display, human soldiers were diving from aircraft at altitudes that would be lethal to most known species. But that wasn't the disturbing part. That was merely their entry method. What followed defied every principle of tactical sanity the Galactic Federation had established over 12 millennia of warfare. The humans were deliberately placing themselves in scenarios designed to kill them. They rappelled down cliff faces while under simulated enemy fire. They crawled through obstacle courses rigged with explosives. They practiced combat maneuvers in environments that ranged from Arctic wastelands to volcanic hellscapes. Most bewildering of all, they seemed to enjoy it. "Pause there," Zethkar commanded, his voice trembling. The display froze on a human sergeant grinning as she emerged from a pit of mud and razor wire, bleeding from dozens of minor cuts. "Enhance the facial expression analysis." The computer's melodic voice filled the chamber. Subject displays elevated dopamine and endorphin levels consistent with pleasure and satisfaction. No signs of distress or coercion detected. "Impossible," Zethkar muttered. "Run a psychological evaluation on the species. Something is fundamentally wrong with their neural pathways." The analysis took several minutes, during which both aliens sat in stunned silence. When the results materialized, they were even more disturbing than the training footage. Conclusion: human neural architecture demonstrates evolutionary adaptation for extreme stress tolerance and danger-seeking behavior. Species appears to have evolved in an environment of constant mortal peril, developing psychological and physical responses that treat life-threatening situations as recreational activities. Vexhai's scales had gone completely pale. "Ambassador, there's more. I've been reviewing their civilian activities." She activated another display. "These are their sports." What followed was a parade of human recreational activities that violated every known principle of self-preservation. Humans threw themselves from perfectly functional aircraft for entertainment. They climbed mountains that killed them regularly. They engaged in ritualized combat sports where the objective was to render each other unconscious. They raced vehicles at speeds that turned minor mistakes into spectacular fatalities. "And they do this for fun?" Zethkar asked weakly. "It appears so, sir. They call dangerous activities extreme sports and pay money to participate in them. The more likely the activity is to result in death or injury, the more popular it becomes." The ambassador's breathing apparatus wheezed as he tried to process this information. "What does command make of this?" "That's what concerns me most, sir." Vexhai displayed a new document. Central Command initially dismissed humans as a primitive species suitable only for observation. But then came the Battle of Kepler 442b. The display shifted to a tactical overview of the infamous battle where the Varkoth hegemony had attempted to establish a forward base in human space. It was the first time the galactic community had witnessed humans in actual combat. "The Varkoth expected conventional resistance," Vexhai continued. "Defensive positions, siege warfare, negotiated surrender when casualties became unsustainable. Instead, the humans did this." The tactical display showed human forces doing something unprecedented in galactic military history. They had voluntarily placed themselves in more dangerous positions than their enemies had attempted to put them in. Human Marines had used their own ships as projectiles. They had detonated their own ammunition supplies to create tactical advantages. They had charged directly into enemy fire, not in desperation, but as their opening strategy. The Varkoth commander's final transmission before retreat, Vexhai read from the report, was a single word: insane. Zethkar stared at the display in growing comprehension and terror. They weren't desperate. They were comfortable. More than comfortable, sir. Analysis of their biometric data during combat shows elevated performance indicators. They fight better when they're in mortal danger. Their reaction time improves, their accuracy increases, and their tactical creativity reaches extraordinary levels. Because they've been training for it their entire species history, Zethkar whispered. Every human alive has been through these death simulation exercises. Multiple times. For years. The psychological profile is even more disturbing, Vexhai added. Humans who avoid dangerous situations for extended periods show signs of depression and anxiety. They require regular exposure to mortal peril for optimal mental health. The ambassador stood silent for long moments, contemplating the implications. Finally, he activated his communication array. Central Command, this is Ambassador Zethkar. I am filing an urgent revision to the Human Species Classification Report. Go ahead, Ambassador. Current classification, Primitive Observer Status. Requested revision. Apex Predator Potential Ally, under no circumstances should we ever fight these lunatics. Ambassador, please clarify your reasoning. Zethkar looked at the frozen image of the human sergeant, still grinning despite her injuries. Central Command. Other species conduct military training to prepare for the possibility of combat. Humans conduct military training because their civilian activities aren't dangerous enough to satisfy their recreational needs. Are you suggesting they pose a significant military threat? I'm suggesting that what they call Tuesday morning calisthenics would be classified as a war crime if we did it to prisoners. And they volunteer for it, enthusiastically. The communication channel fell silent for several moments. Ambassador, came the careful reply, prepare a full diplomatic initiative. It appears we should discuss an alliance with the humans. Agreed, Zethkar replied, watching as the training footage resumed and humans continued to accomplish the impossible while laughing. Because I really don't want to find out what they do when they're actually angry.